At Capella University, you're in control of your education. With the game-changing FlexPath format, you can set your own deadlines and move at your own pace. The faster you move, the more you save. Visit capella.edu to learn more.
The Traveler's Inn, Tangled Skein, Episode 9, The Best Defense. The next couple of hours were a flurry of activity that ended in a bang. The first wagon to explode was on purpose. The other three were not. The town had set to their tasks with enthusiasm, for the most part. Each of the adventurers had a half-dozen people following them around, taking commands and distributing jobs to be done to other villagers. Whenever Luna suggested a change, Tiggy snapped and barked, making people jump to do whatever thing it was that Luna said, even if it was just an observation or passing mention. The town elder had the leatherworker following the priestess around, trying to size her for new protective pieces, just because she mentioned a rivet needed fixed on her steel and hide breastplate. Manx led his group around, which comprised mostly of street urchins, lazeabouts, and town drunks. They were all the sort of people who would run a scam, so they didn't have to get up from the chair, get a job, or ever have to do any kind of work at all. But they listened to the street thief. He droned on, huffing and sighing about how it really sucked, but these things had to be done. His down-to-earth attitude, tired of dealing with everyone else's bullshit, made them feel that the world-wise young man really got what they were going through on a daily basis. And what Manx suggested was interesting, the kind of things that were worth getting off the couch to do. Things like blowing up the cart the Wainwright used to take his goods to market while glaring at them as they leaned against a shady part of the pub, or rocking in a chair on the porch of the general store. It would serve the bastard right, being all judgy and stuff. He didn't know them, didn't know what they went through. Manx led a small parade through the town, pointing out which house had enough of a crawl space to move through, but was small enough to hide under, which roof could be climbed with ease using railings and posts, or which horse would panic whenever it heard anything resembling the crack of a whip, and that sort of thing. Passing Gunther's group, Manx sighed and shook his head, 3 younger men behind him imitating the move. The barbarian was doing everything wrong with the townfolk. The big man talked like everything was some incredible scalding tale from the northern wastelands and frozen tundra. Is there any other sort of tundra? Manx wondered, his eyes still watching the barbarian, passionately trying to convince the group of doubting men, led by Bernie, to bring out all the tables from the inn. And do spiders really live in the ice flow straight beyond the northern wastelands? I understand that maybe some had grown thicker hairs. Spines? Trichobothria? Setae? So many stupid names for hairs. And could insulate themselves from the snow and winds. The thief refocused on Gunther. Gesturing in wide circles, the barbarian was telling the townsfolk how to surround the core of the town, and how spiders could climb or jump over things, but obstacles would still slow their approach. With each passing moment and word, the men around the big warrior looked a little more scared. Manx sighed. Come on, he gestured to the trio behind him. And remember, stay behind me and don't talk. Your job is to be my intimidators, and to do that your body language will do much more than any words. Nod, cross your arms, and look people directly in the eye. They hate that. If you're nervous, fiddle with one item, a toothpick, a coin, eat an apple. Do anything except shift and shuffle. Messing with something makes you look relaxed and unconcerned, even when you're not. The 3 men nodded, two of them crossing their arms. Each caught the movement of the other one doing the same action, and both stopped, then uncrossed their arms. Seeing the other man had undone it, they both moved to do it again, watching one another. Manx sighed and walked over to the barbarian and his group. "Hey, man," the thief whispered. The villagers surrounding and complaining to the warrior, who was only trying to instruct them, quieted and looked at the newcomer. "Manx, oh," Gunther huffed. "Can't you see I'm busy? I don't have time to chat right now." "Yeah, I know. You're always busy, big guy," the younger man murmured, and the crowd leaned in like they were trying to hear a secret. "It's hard being such a powerful warrior that everyone always wants you around. I saw you killed all those spiders back in the tower. It was like you were born to do this." The trio stood behind Manx, looking bored, but nodding. One had his arms crossed across his chest, the second was twirling a twig between his fingers, and the third was shifting his hands on his hips, trying to find the right stance to look cool. "And if I remember how you defended our camp that one time," the rogue continued, "from those flying tree monkeys, it was like you were reading their minds, knowing exactly how they were going to come in. Anyone who doesn't listen to you is a moron, probably committing suicide." Slapping the barbarian on his bicep, Manx moved away, followed by his flunkies. The men around Gunther stared at the warrior with newfound respect and awe. "As I was trying to explain," Gunther growled, glaring at the thieves retreating back, "what we need to do is—" "No need to explain any more, sir," Bernie said quickly, interrupting the barbarian. "We got it. Come on, boys. Let's get the wagons, barrels, and grain sacks. We've got some defenses to set up. We'll all be heroes if we do what Gunther says." "And our loved ones may survive," Malcolm, the whiny guy who had been there when Gunther first had come to town, added. "That's good, too." "Yeah, that too. Of course, that too. It's important they survive." Barney's voice drifted away as he led the other men to start preparations. "What happened to Market?" Manx asked, looking between Luna and Gunther. The three had gathered together after setting the people of Salami to task. They stood in a small huddle, watching the sun set in the west, comparing final notes on how to survive the night. "He couldn't make it." Luna's voice was tense. Her two friends couldn't tell if it was regret or anger. "What happened?" Gunther asked. "I was a bit out of it when we departed the tower. I really only remember Blueberry telling me where to go." The thief and priestess exchanged a worried look. "Things got too heavy for him, literally and figuratively," Luna snapped. "That's why he gave me his bag of goodies that he'd pilfered while we were all helpless or busy doing the heavy lifting, a.k.a. killing." "I can't say I'll miss him. He was a stupid man who always made others feel stupid, but he had his uses in a pinch." "Like when he burned the webs?" Manx asked, and the other two nodded reluctantly. "And brought us out of the trance the spider lady had us under? Or convinced Luna to distract Derek while we were all still drugged from whatever that guy did to us?" Luna's head snapped towards the thief, a scowl turning her lips and brow down. "Not to mention figuring out how to use the transport bow on the roof," Gunther added, getting another glare from Luna for his input. "Fine, he was useful," Luna grudgingly admitted, "but he was a con man and robbed everyone blind. He took advantage of every opportunity to scam, steal, or swipe anything he thought was shiny. Gunther," she continued, "he undercut your authority as party leader every chance he could." "That's true," Gunther agreed, adding in a mutter, "but you do that too." "And Manx," Luna went on, ignoring the barbarian's last comment, He always undercut your ideas with some idiotic idea of his own." "He really didn't," Manx sighed. "But if that's what you need to tell yourself, we all process grief differently." "It wasn't your fault." Gunther put a hand on the priestess's arm. "I'm sure you did everything you could to save him." Luna looked at the man's hand on her, then slowly raised her eyes to his face. Her look was dangerous. Gunther jerked his hand back. "Doesn't matter," the priestess said. "He's not here, and we have things to do." All three nodded, each face showing different emotions. Luna, anger. Manx, doubt. Gunther looked sad. They turned away from their huddle, each heading towards their respective duties. A few hours after sunset, the horn sounded. Bells clanged and banged, voices shouted, and people ran to their places. Manx leaned against the side of the inn, his men lounging around him. The group had grown to over 20 men and women. Children as young as 7 tagged along, being put to work as runners for supplies and information, bringing the total number of people around Manx to over 3 dozen. He hated it. He worked alone, and all these people looking to him for leadership grated on his style. The kids weren't surprising to him. Once Luna had assured the parents that Manx wouldn't see action and that it kept the kids out from underfoot, the adults had sent their spawn to help the thin, shady guy who had the town drunks actually contributing. Snapping his fingers, Manx gave the command for everyone to wake up and be at the ready. He told the surrounding people to spread out, nap if they could, and watch for the signal to cause chaos for the enemy. This was odd for him, because the people around him were like spiders, in that they were loners and rarely, if ever, worked in groups. But tonight, both those around him and spiders would work with others. The first of the enemy, enormous spiders the size of horses, leaped over the makeshift barricades, their spindly limbs curled under them in the jump, landing in a splay-legged stance. With a wave of his hand, Manx gave the command to light the fuses. Flint and steel sparked, miniature stars dancing and jittering to land on the oil-soaked rags that led to the first wagon. Blue flame woofed into existence and shimmied its way towards the blockade. It jogged up the rag rope to the flatbed of the cart and exploded. Chunks of flaming wood shot in all directions, landing in a 5-meter radius of the transport. Debris rained down onto the other 2 wagons close to it. That was when those 2 also exploded. Flaming detritus scattered across the area and people ran in all directions. Gunther shouted at the men running away, demanding they return and hold fast. In moments, the barbarian stood alone, except for Malcolm, Bernie, and Eric, the guy with the gurgle voice. Manx sighed. Someone had put a bit too much accelerant into the rags on the back of the wagon. Watching the series of smaller explosions, he noticed a group of children jumping up and down in excitement at the pyrotechnic display, slapping their hands together in a group high five. Then the kids started screaming, dancing and lifting their knees high. It wasn't the celebratory kind of dancer screams, though. The thief looked down and saw the ground moving underfoot. It looked like a carpet that had come alive. And he realized it was thousands of smaller spiders coursing past him and into the village. One bite from a spider wasn't so bad for most folks, but a dozen bites, or 100, and even the healthiest person was likely to have a reaction. Under Manx's advisement, they hadn't expected this to happen so early in the attack. He said that the smaller spiders would take longer to get here. Logicking it through, the rogue decided that the smaller spiders must have ridden on the larger ones, allowing the expected waves to come all at once in a single, massive, overwhelming attack. They'd prepared for this, though, and had expected it to come later. Luna shouted commands at the women, who pulled soaked blankets from rain barrels. They shook them in the air, fanning them out and dropping them on the ground. The ladies danced across the material, stomping and crushing the miniature invaders. Others, bolder than the dancers, dropped to their knees with rolling pins, planks of wood, and anything else they could get their hands on. They smashed the creatures underneath, killing any that didn't smother from the wet blanket. Moggets watched from the edge of the woods as the fireball shot into the sky, the wagons blazing in the night air. The mage had landed, quite uncoordinated and embarrassingly, in a tree to one side of the village. He'd blacked out and woken, just before sunset, hanging precariously from one leg a few meters above the ground. He wasn't wanted here. But this was his gig. He'd chosen it, convinced the others to go on it, and gathered the loot when they couldn't do anything more than stare at a dancing spider lady. He'd burned the webs, defeated the boss, and found their escape route that saved the lives of his 3 companions and many of the lost villagers. He'd be damned if he would not be here for the climax of the story. They might not respect him or even like him, but he'd earned his place in the group and wouldn't be tossed aside, no matter how they felt about him. Torches on stakes placed along the perimeter of the town lit the night. Moggets crept forward to the edge of the glowing circle of light, and he took in the scene. Gunther stood in a circle of spiders, Blueberry perched on his shoulder. Damn, that man could swing a sword. The fast-moving spiders were eviscerated whenever they got close to him. The mage could see the look of disgust and fear on the man's face as he hacked and speared the enemy, but gave a brief nod of respect as the barbarian did what needed to be done. Luna was a frenzy of movement, her fit form gliding between the ladies of the village. Every single woman around the priestess had faith that they'd be protected as they dropped wet blankets over the smaller spiders, smothering and smashing them. The priestess called upon the wrath of her goddess to empower her and protect the other women. She glowed, literally a nimbus of light surrounding her. As she swung the flail in her hand, she crushed larger arachnids, spinning to kick another away, then swinging the ball and chain weapon to crush it in midair. Manx was the hardest to spot. The youngest of their group appeared from a shadow, knives flying from his hands. He darted and spun through the enemies, recovering his blades, then disappeared into the smoky gloom around the village. Popping back into existence just beyond the next building, he'd slash a few hairy legs off a beast and stab upward into the monster's thorax, felling it. The thief disappeared again. And Moggets thought of the legendary shadow dancers of the lost cities. Did this kid know the secrets of a clan of thieves and assassins who could move from one shadow to another using a form of magic that the Great Collapse had devoured? How the hell do I help with this? Moggets muttered aloud. Or should I just go find the shit I picked up and head for the inn? He mulled it over, looking at the fight. The villagers weren't doing well, though they thought they were. They fought like people who had nothing to lose because they'd already lost it all, and they had. The wizard could see dozens of people slapping at their arms, legs, body, the spider's venom coursing through them from a dozen or 100 bites. Some already lay writhing on the ground, foaming at the mouth from the toxin. Others lay bloated and dying, their bodies swollen from the deadly bites. They're screwed, Moggett spat. I can't help them. The only answer is one of two things. Wait until the spiders leave and get my stuff, or go in now and get out while they're all distracted. Spiders, villagers, and my friends. Looking down, the maid stared at his feet. He watched the curled toes of his purplish-pink shoes as they bobbed up and down in his indecision. Fine. I can go in now, but I will not help them. They deserve whatever they get. The mage ran forward, gritting his teeth and growling under his breath. Growling, he thought. Have I picked up some less than savory habits from Luna? Ew! He leaped at the building in front of him, turning sideways as the magic of the slippers kicked in. He fell to the side of the building, landing on his feet and standing upright. The world was turned sideways, the magic of the shoes shifting gravity so the mage could run along the wall like it was flat ground. Moggitz ran up, lifting a leg over the eave of the building so his feet didn't both leave the surface of the structure, and his body swung up to the roof. Darting across the rooftop, he stopped at the far edge, looking at the chaos of the battle below. "Presto changeo!" Moggitz shouted. The minor magics he had at his disposal heightened his senses, and his sight, sense of smell, hearing, and touch grew to dynamic proportions. He looked in the direction of the tower and saw movement. As his vision clarified, he saw hundreds of spiders the size of attack dogs lurching towards the village. They didn't scurry like the others. Instead, they lunged. Thick forms that were solid and heavy lumbered towards the hamlet. "Oh, shit," Moggitz muttered. "How many of them will die when those get here? A better question is, how many will survive?" Shaking his head, the mage reconsidered his course of action. What did it mean to him if a bunch of dumb hicks died? And what about Gunther, Manx, and Luna? It would be a thrill for Gunther to die in battle, and I could live to tell his tale, Moggitz murmured, his fingers moving through his pouches, searching for anything helpful. Manx, well, I like the kid. I mean, he's a weirdo. But aren't we all? Well, worth keeping the freaks alive to mess with the Muns. As for Luna, well, geesh. She keeps helping people and only wants to do that. Does she deserve to die? Do any of them, even dumb hicks, deserve to be the hero of their own story? Moggitz hesitated. He sighed, his shoulders slumping. I know what I should do. He sighed again. I should get the hell out of here and go live to drink another day. But since when do I do what anyone ever expected of me? He straightened his shoulders, eyes narrowing as he focused on the battle below. But to be clear, he said, at least to myself, I am only doing this to get the reward, not because of anything else. He threw himself off the building and into the night, shouting one of the few magical phrases he knew.
Amazon is changing the way we think about TVs. Say hello to the Amazon Fire TV Omni Series, a new 4K ultra-high-definition smart TV with Dolby Vision and hands-free Alexa. This is Amazon's first hands-free TV with all your favorite Fire TV and Alexa features, now in one TV. You can stream all of your favorite content, shows, music, and more. The Amazon Fire TV Omni Series is available in a variety of sizes and competitive prices in store at Best Buy or at Amazon.com.